Ed and I are now going to try to answer some commonly asked questions regarding end-of-life treatments in the Catholic faith.
So the first question is, as a Catholic, am I obligated to continue treatment in every single case?
No. As Catholics, we are not obligated to continue treatment in every case. Our obligation is to weigh the burdens and the benefits of any medical treatment to decide whether that is morally optional or morally required. When the burdens outweigh the benefits, it is not morally required to take that treatment. It is always required that we offer care to patients, food and water and warmth and personal hygiene measures. Those are just ordinary care that we owe to one another. Ed, how is assisted suicide different from foregoing treatment?
Well, foregoing treatment is where you make that burden-benefit analysis and the patient decides, or the surrogate decides for the patient, that the burdens outweigh the benefits. And so it's morally not obligatory, and they've decided to accept basically the inevitability of their death from natural causes. Assisted suicide is fundamentally different because it's a decision and an act by the patient taking their own life using medicine that the doctor prescribes for that purpose. So the act is completely different and the intention is completely different.
I was told I need to fill out a MOLST form. What is this, and should I fill it out?
The MOLST form is a document that was developed by New York State. It's called the Medical Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. And it's designed to basically memorialize the doctor's orders about what you should be treated with during the last 6 months of your life. But it is, even though it has become very common and typical in places, nursing homes and hospitals to do this, it is absolutely not required. A patient does not have to consent to a MOLST form. They do not have to agree to sign it. So we encourage patients, in fact, to be very careful about these things because they're inflexible and they may lead essentially to euthanasia. Okay. So no one's required to fill out a MOLST.
What about a DNR order? Is there anything to be concerned about with that?
A DNR order is a do not resuscitate order. It basically is limited to one particular thing, and that's CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It's not obligatory. You don't have to sign a DNR order. You may if you wish. As Catholics, we believe that you also still have to do that burden-benefit analysis for whether CPR is indicated for that particular patient. Will the benefits of resuscitation outweigh the burdens of it? The thing that we are concerned about is whether some healthcare people and healthcare institutions will look at a DNR order and essentially take that as an order declining any kind of aggressive or thorough treatment. So we're a little worried about DNR orders, not because of what the order is, but because of the message that it might send to the medical people that you don't really have to treat me very much. Why is appointing a healthcare proxy better than executing a living will?
Well, a living will is just so inflexible and limited and tries to get everything down on a piece of paper, envisioning what might or might not happen in the future. Whereas a healthcare proxy person is a live human being who can be there in the moment to make decisions for someone who is incapacitated. So they can make those decisions based on conversations with the physician and with the family and what's happening medically. It just is a much more practical and useful advance directive than a living will. It is important when choosing someone to be your proxy decision maker under the healthcare proxy. You want to choose someone who understands your Catholic faith, someone who knows you well, someone who is of good moral character, who operates well under stress, and who can be on the scene quickly. There are lots of advance directive documents online, Ed, lots of living wills. Anything to be concerned about with these?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be concerned about with these documents. A lot of the documents are being promoted by pro-euthanasia organizations. So they really have a very strong bias against treatments and even against ordinary care. So in addition to the regular concerns that we have about living wills, the inflexibility and the inability to foresee all circumstances, we, I think, are really worried about some of these standard forms because they edge people towards making morally irresponsible decisions.
Mm-hmm. So what if a person has more than one advance directive? How do you know which one takes precedence?
That can be a very confusing thing at the end of life when the decisions have to be made. Under the law, the healthcare proxy really is the one who has the dominant authority to make healthcare decisions for the patient. Under the law, if a surrogate is appointed, according to that list that's in the statute, they have the authority, because the whole idea of a proxy or the surrogate is to substitute their decision for the patient's. Mm-hmm. And the patient always, at least in theory, has all the authority to make decisions. The problem is that when confronted with very clear instructions in a living will or some other kind of advance directive, or a medical order, there can be a conflict between the proxy and the healthcare people over which controls, and you don't want fights over this. Yeah. So you want to make sure that all of your documents conform with each other, which is why you need to reevaluate them periodically so that you don't have that conflict. Mm-hmm. Why should nutrition and hydration always be considered ordinary care? What should I do if my doctors advise against medically assisted food and hydration?
Well, nutrition and hydration provide us with basic sustenance to live. And if they are removed, we will die of starvation and dehydration. So unless a person is imminently dying and cannot assimilate the food and water into their body, it is wrong in principle to deny them food and water, even if it is medically provided through some kind of medical equipment like a feeding tube. If doctors advise against this, I would try to get a second opinion, and I would try to get other healthcare people involved in the case to see if that's everyone's opinion. And then if still the advice is to remove a feeding tube and you feel that that is not correct, try to get a transfer to another medical facility. Try to get people in there who can help you with these decisions.
Sometimes you have to really go to bat for the patient and fight against the doctors. It's hard, yes, but you still have to do it.
Yes. Doesn't the use of pain medication like morphine sometimes hasten death? Is using such medication euthanasia?
Well, a lot of the painkillers that are used have secondary effects, right? The primary effect is to alleviate the symptom of physical pain. But they also can have indirect effects, things like suppressing your breathing or things like that. No, it's not euthanasia. It's not murder. Your primary intent, your real intent, is to alleviate the symptoms. The secondary effect is something that you accept as just like a necessary side effect. But I'm not intending to kill a person by alleviating their pain. I'm intending to alleviate the pain. So it's a fundamentally different thing from euthanasia. Euthanasia is when I give a person medicine or some kind of drug with the intention to kill them, and that's what kills them. Mm-hmm. The pain medicine, if I give it with the intention to alleviate pain, that doesn't kill them. The underlying cause may kill them, but not the pain medicine. Right. So what should I do if the doctors refuse to provide treatment that I think is morally required?
Well, you have to become an advocate and an ombudsman for the patient. You have to go to bat for them, and you have to fight for them sometimes within the healthcare institution, and sometimes you even have to go farther than the healthcare institution and go to the Department of Health, where they have actual departments that deal with complaints about hospitals and nursing homes and other health facilities. They have an Office of Medical Misconduct where you can report physicians and other medical professionals who you don't believe are doing things in the best interests of your loved ones. So I think we just have to, as you said, Ed, go to bat for people and become their advocate.
And the last ditch effort in these kinds of situations is you can go to court and challenge the doctors and the hospital to get a court order requiring them to give the treatment. It's very difficult to do. We discourage it. It's a very hard fight, but it is a last resort.
What do I do if the insurance company won't pay for treatment?
This is a very difficult problem right now because of the profit-driven nature of health insurance companies. A lot of people are used to fighting with their insurance company for easy things like tests and medicines. You really have to fight. And a lot of times you can enlist the doctors and the healthcare people to help you fight against them. The health insurance companies usually have somebody that they call a patient advocate or something like that, whose job it is to give you advice, but sometimes you can enlist their support as well. It's very difficult, as we all know, dealing with insurance companies. So you have to either fight yourself or appoint a proxy or a surrogate who's going, is going to really push the insurance companies. End-of-life decisions should not be made based on cost factors. And we know that that's the business of insurance companies. So we're in a difficult situation, but we have to fight with them.
I always remember what Derek Humphrey said years ago. Remember Derek Humphrey? He founded the Hemlock Society, and he said, at the end of the day, what's going to drive people to accept physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia is not personal autonomy, it's cost. Yeah. It's cost factors. Scary.
Yes. So how can I prepare my family to support me at the end of my life?
Well, I think the most important thing is having conversations with your family members. Having conversations, even though they're difficult and they're challenging, about death and about dying and about our wishes and about our faith and what it teaches. I mean, really, it's so important to have those conversations early and often. I think about some of the more famous cases in our country here of end-of-life cases like Terry Schiavo and Nancy Cruzan and Karen Ann Quinlan. These were young women in the prime of their life, and they had not taken the time to talk to anyone about their wishes at the end of life. It behooves all of us to have those conversations with our family members. Do I need to fill out a new proxy every time I go into the hospital?
This is a common source of confusion for people. Both New York State and federal law require that the hospital give you a proxy form and invite you to fill out a new one. But no, you don't have to fill out that form. Your proxy stays in effect as long as it exists until you do a new one. In fact, we encourage people not to fill out the form at the hospital if they already have a proxy, because you might make a mistake and omit some important information. You might make a mistake and appoint the wrong person when you're just filling out all your documents. You really want to fill out a proxy as a thoughtful, careful thing, and not at the admission window or, God forbid, in the emergency room when you're filling out all those forms.
And when you complete the proxy, who do you give it to? Where do you put it?
I actually recommend that people execute multiple original copies, 2 or 3 original copies, so that you have one that you keep yourself with all your important papers, your will, your insurance documents, things like that. Never put them in a safe deposit box, because if a person dies, you can't open the safe deposit box until the IRS comes in case you have jewels or something in there. You give us another copy to the primary proxy, the first person you appoint. If you have an alternate, you should execute another original and give it to them. And if you have a regular doctor, it's a good idea to give it to them as well so that it's in your medical file. If you're in a long-term care facility, you want to give it to the facility so that it's in your chart. You want to make sure that everybody who needs to know about this thing has immediate access to it.
I knew somebody who shrunk their healthcare proxy down really teeny tiny and kept a copy in their wallet, in case they were ever in a tragic accident or something. And that, my friends, concludes our question and answer section.
If anybody has any other questions, obviously they can contact their Respect Life office or go on the website for the New York State Catholic Conference or, again, any diocesan website.